Well, a very, very good evening to everyone. This is the 10th session of our Here and Now listening service. And you remember we've spoken about this service which allows people who need to talk themselves out to be able to do that to a compassionate listener, either by telephone, by Zoom, by email, or face-to-face. So this is the 10th week, and if you need to talk and you cannot find a compassionate listener, and sometimes that can happen to us, then do contact us. If you contact me initially, then I can fix things up for you with perhaps a female listener or a male listener, so that you'll be absolutely safe. But if you wish to contact me, the way to do that is by telephone on 0191 460 4567. If you leave a message for me there, my name is Ed Nichols, and obviously we're all connected with Dunstan Activity Centre. If I'm in, obviously I'll speak to you, but if I'm not, leave me a message and I'll get back to you if you leave me a contact number. You can contact me on by email on ed.nichols, NICHOLS, @live.com. And basically we can converse there. You can, if you're more comfortable just typing yourself out, rather than speaking yourself out, then we can do that. If you prefer Zoom or you prefer a face-to-face, we can set that up even in these days of lockdown, obviously with lots of social distancing and masks and all the rest of it, but we can set that up for you. So if you have a real urgent need to speak, this Here and Now service is for you. Remember, we always encourage you to be in touch about any personal problems with depression, or worse, with our local medical centres. So please register with them. But if you find yourself unable to secure a listening therapy, a counsellor, or similar types of service, in other words, you cannot find a professional human being to listen to you, then we have a trained counsellor who can, and the difference is that we can often do it more immediately because we're not under the same pressure as the local medical centres are. But always register your condition with our local medical centres. We're certainly not trying to prevent that. So I hope you're well. We're in another lockdown, aren't we? And of course that brings the challenges and perhaps its stresses and pressures. I don't know how you're coping with that. I would encourage you that basically, if you need to talk, this service is here for you. And I would encourage you to try in your life to find compassionate listeners within your own families and friendships. Tonight I'd like to speak to you about the importance of being able to speak and to be listened to in a hyper-technological age which we're in. It is becoming increasingly technological. iPhones, smartphones, tablets, screens, computers, and so on and so forth. And it's often reported, isn't it, that basically technology is good in itself. There's nothing wrong with technology. It's rather what we do with it. It's rather how we use it, or rather how we misuse it. That's the problem. And I think we can all think very quickly and easily of how technology, the way that human beings like you and me use it, can be an enemy of people speaking to us and us listening to them. I think we're all familiar, aren't we, of scenes where people are ostensibly out on a social occasion, and actually what they're doing is they're not socializing, they're not talking to each other or listening to each other. What they're actually doing is giving their attention to a smartphone. And I think we've all seen these things, haven't we? I saw an awful thing that really upset me actually in one of the local villages in Gateshead here. There was a young woman, and she was walking down this path, and behind her, about 4 meters behind, was a little girl about 3 or 4. And this young mother was on her phone, on her smartphone, and basically she was obviously giving a lot of attention to it. She looked quite stressed and pressured as she was looking to it and accessing information. And then she turned around to this little girl who seemed to be getting further and further behind, and just really shouted at her. It was more like a bark than a motherly word. It was awful. And then she returned to her phone as this little tot started to catch up with her. Now that is an extreme case, but I was really quite horrified by that. That technology could do that and cause a mother to kind of speak so awfully to a little girl like that. I thought it was awful. But I want to say to you tonight, that we do need to be watchful about technology and not make a joke of its dehumanizing consequences. Because not to be listened to is the beginning of relational breakdown, of personal distress, and of a community which disintegrates. The heart of community, of relationship and personal contentment is that we can express ourselves through words to those who are willing to listen to us and to compassionately and sensitively respond to us. That is at the heart of community, of relationships, of marriage, of partnerships, of personal contentment and satisfaction. It is therefore an essential thing. It is not something that we can just cast a few jokes at, or indeed is not important. It is absolutely essential to us as human beings. Just have a look at this picture here. Here we see 5 young people in very close proximity to each other, and they've all got their hands on their ears, which basically means they're all sitting close to each other physically, but no one is engaging with anyone in that company. Now this is a graphic which just underlines to us how, although we don't actually see scenes like this with people with their hands on their ears, effectively what could be happening is that actually by not listening to each other or being sensitive to the conversation of others, that's basically what we're doing. We might as well take our hands and put them on our ears so that whatever is being spoken can't be heard or responded to, and the person speaking feels somehow dehumanized. As I say, I don't think people sit around with their hands on their ears in company like that, but actually, though we don't do that literally, that in effect is what we can do, particularly in this technological age. We might all ask ourselves, are we guilty of giving our attention to technology rather than to people? It's an important question, isn't it, really? Because basically we all need, all of us, each one of us, some more than others at times, but we all need a listening ear. And so let's just be wise. Let us think Let's not just let technology run away with us. But let's stop and ask ourselves, what effect is technology having on my listening to others? My giving of attention to others? And that could include those who are very close to us. It include husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, fiancés, partners, children, relatives, friends, and just even people in the streets, in the shopping centres. Do you know, we see people every now and again in Dunstan Activity Centre, and really they just come in to establish some kind of contact. They don't come in to do an activity or anything like that. They may use the toilet or something when they're out on a walk, but they just want to say hello and someone to listen to that and to respond to them. And we have sensitive people in our centre there, males and females, who are good at responding to people. So these people come in regularly. They seem to be people on their own, and all they really come in for is to say, well, hello, and someone to respond to them, to listen to them, so that they have a sense that basically there are people around in our community who will still give them the time of day, even if it is just to listen to their greeting and to greet them back. And you know, I think in these simple things, community spirit is reborn. I always remember my father, who was from a little Welsh mining village called Newbridge. And when you went there, you would always be spoken to, particularly in the past, when I was a boy or when I was a young man down there. People would speak to you. They would say hello or good morning. Always speak to you. So you always felt, well, you know, although I'm a stranger here, I'm from the northeast of England, yet people recognise me, acknowledge me, to the point where they will pass the time of day, and some of them, you know, were really quite funny, and they would, you know, they would tell you a little funny story, or they would ask you a few questions, so you felt that people had engaged with you, that some human communication took place, that they were willing to speak to you and also to listen to you. And I thought, in that little Welsh mining village, as often mining villages were and are more in the past than today, whether mining villages up north here or down in Wales or wherever, that there was a healthy balance of speaking and listening taking place, which made people feel part of a community, made people feel valued. And this is so important, so important. I'm talking to you tonight about technology. What effect is that having on the quality of our listening to each other and our being able to speak to someone who sensitively listens? Look at this graphic now of a man and a woman embracing each other. Can you see that this photograph of this man and wife, this man and woman in close relationship, is a contradiction? It seems to be saying one thing, but actually it is revealing another thing. Just imagine you've got your arms around a woman, she's got her arms around you. That would suggest, wouldn't you, if you said, here's a man and woman embracing each other, what do you think that suggests? Then I think you would say, well, what it suggests is good relationship, a loving relationship, a kind relationship. But as you can see from this graphic, although they're physically embracing each other, they are emotionally, mentally, psychologically distant from each other. The man is looking past the woman in his arms to a phone. And the woman is looking over the shoulder of the man she's holding to a phone. And that is quite sad, really. I do believe, as in fact all the psychologists and sociologists are warning, that we need to review the use of technology. That it can really undermine good relationship. This graphic may be a sign of the times in this nation. And apparently this nation in Europe is leading the way in what you might call technological dysfunction. Our young people would rather be on the phone than talk to us as parents. They sometimes would rather be on the phone than talk to their peer group. Children in this country are more inclined to be addicted to smartphones than in any other comparable nation in Europe: France, Germany, Italy, Spain. And so, without being alarmist, that's the last thing you need to hear in the middle of a lockdown, you know, somebody being alarmist. But may I say gently and kindly that I think I and all of us need to really consider whether or not technology is dehumanizing us and undermining the closeness of our relationships. If so, it may take a bit of doing, a bit of starting to get into the habit, but let us have technology under our control and not be under the control of technology. I believe that if a man takes a woman in his arms and a woman takes hold of the man, that is a very good context for sensitive and compassionate speaking and listening. You'll see in that graphic that actually their use of technology has destroyed that altogether. Let's prevent that happening. Let's be wise. Everyone, I think, wants to see close communities. People go back to times, you know, when people had less money, and yet the communities seemed to be kinder and more compassionate, that you would be more likely to be heard than you would in the 21st century. Now, we can bemoan the past and say, oh, if only it could be like that. But better than bemoaning the past is to make the necessary adjustments today, so that today we can change things. And here's what I would really encourage you all in. We can change things. So let's look at our technology. Some people's response to the lockdowns has been this. They immerse themselves in technology. It might be the television that we just catch up with box sets. So basically watch hours and hours and hours of our favourite series when we share a home with other human beings. We might want to ask ourselves if that is conducive to good relationships or not. It may be that we're on the computer all the time. It may be that we're into computer games, one after the other, you know, and apparently that is very addictive. I'm so hopeless at computer games that I'm not a candidate for addiction, but I can see how people can get addicted. So lockdown might be an opportunity for us just to get basically technologically addicted to the point where the human beings that we share a house with, a home with, are rather neglected. That we're not there to listen or to converse with them. And so basically, through technology, our relationships have deteriorated. Just think differently of lockdown. Could lockdown be just the opportunity that we've all needed to stop and to listen to each other? Sometimes in close relationships, you know, we don't seem to have the time to sort things out, or basically, you know, we're too tired to sort them out. But lockdown, not for everyone, but for many of us, gives us that time to stop. Gives us time not to fill with technology, but perhaps to catch up with some issues that perhaps have been accumulating over years. And then all we need to do is to listen to each other caringly and compassionately. And if issues arise, let them arise pleasantly, not obviously with rows and arguments and shouting and bitterness and all of that, but listen and speak to one another compassionately and caringly. And then this lockdown, this stopping place, might be not a curse to us, but an actual blessing. I want to thank you for your time in listening to this broadcast. And may we individually, in our homes, in our close relationships, in our community, be in control of technology to the point where our listening to others is not impeded, and our speaking courteously to each other is not done away with. I thank you very much for your time, and a very blessed lockdown. Thank you.